The accident that I was in was so bad that I really can't even remember it happening. There's like a big block of time that has pretty much been erased from my mind, so the knowledge that I have was given to me secondhand by people who witnessed it or the doctors.
During the day, I had spoken with Jack, and he told me his plans about going to the Redskin game that night, and he told me, you know, what he was planning on doing, and we talked about how cold it was, and talked about the weather and the road conditions, and I tried to convince him to go on the Metro, but he said no, he was going to drive in case the game went into overtime. He'd have his car to get back, and he said, "Mom, don't worry, I'm going to be just fine." It was the last thing he said to me when we hung up.
December 6, 2007, it was a Thursday, and it was a nice day. It was cold because it had just snowed. It was nice enough to where we were going to go early and we were going to tailgate in the parking lot. I was driving on 234 Prince William Parkway to pick up my friend, and on the way, it's a 3-lane road, and me and another car moved towards the middle lane at the same time, so to avoid a collision, I swerved back into the left lane. I guess there was some ice still left on the road, and when I overcorrected, I hit a patch of ice which rolled the car, and the car rolled into a ditch in the median, and then from that point I was ejected from the car. I went out the windshield and cleared the lanes of oncoming traffic and landed on the other side. I was immediately knocked out. Someone, I have no idea who it was, but someone called 911. A trooper, thankfully, was close. Immediately called an ambulance, and I was told that when he called the ambulance, he asked them to bring a body bag. The ambulance brought a body bag and came to the scene of the accident, and they refused to put me in a body bag and thought that I had even though I looked lifeless, I still had a chance. So they called a helicopter. A helicopter came and picked me up, took me to the hospital.
My name is John Sykes, and I'm a registered nurse. I'm a medevac flight nurse, medevac meaning helicopter. And the reason medevac is called for a transport is for two main reasons: for level of care or for time-sensitive reasons, so that we can get the patient to the hospital. When I saw Jack for the first time, I saw a patient, a lightweight, 140 or 30-pound type of individual. So I noticed he wasn't big, with blood all over his face and his head. But what was most pronounced about him was that he was having seizure activity and what we refer to as posturing. He was having decerebrate posturing, which is indicative of someone who's had a traumatic brain injury of some kind or head trauma. It became important for us to manage the airway so we didn't lose it, and so that we could maintain good oxygenation to the parts of his body that need it, in this particular case, his brain.
I had this feeling that something was wrong because Jack's twin brother, Jerry, called me and he said, "Mom, have you talked to Jack lately?" And I told him about our conversation, and he said, "Well, he's not answering his phone right now. He's not answering. He didn't show up to pick up his friend Matt, and nobody can find him." And at that moment, I knew something was wrong, because Jack's character is not one that he would not pick up somebody or he would not call. I knew something was wrong. I just sensed it.
I was working in Williamsburg on a job site, and Connie called me. She was somewhat panicked and said that she felt like something bad had happened to Jack. And it was snowing a little bit and icing a little bit. And I told her, "Don't worry, I'll head up there and I'll find him, and then everything will be fine."
When I first got home, Jerry said, "Mom, you need to sit down, because Jack has been in a car accident, and I know where he is, and we need to get to Northern Virginia."
Immediately when I went to the hospital, there were a lot of people in the emergency room, so the doctors had to sort of choose which people to help and which people were hopeless. Some of the doctors said that I was not going to make it and that they had other people that had a better chance and they were worth working on. But one of the doctors refused to let a young 20-year-old die in the ER without making an effort to bring him back. Within an hour of being in the hospital, the neurosurgeon who was in there immediately gave me a craniotomy where he cut out a portion of my skull about that big and removed it to allow the swelling. And from that point on, I was in a coma.
We just kept praying. We had so many people all over the world praying for him. We wouldn't allow ourselves to think negative. We just kept moving forward.
You got to win every day is what our motto was.
And his eyes started fluttering and he became awake and became a little more alert. I knew that he was waking up and he was going to be fine. I could tell while our prayers were being answered.
For me, it was part of the plan. I mean, I told him when he was unconscious, I told him when he was just beginning to regain consciousness that I'm taking you home.
It took a lot of work in the hospital, a lot of doctors, a lot of therapists, a lot of nurses, a lot of different types of specialists. I was sent to a rehab facility.
After an injury of this magnitude, many times limbs are paralyzed and the paralysis does not recover. Sometimes half of the body is paralyzed, like a stroke victim, for example. A lot of times ability to speak doesn't come back. A lot of times ability to solve problems, think logically and effectively, those do not come back. His recovery was much faster than any expectations I ever had. It was miraculous.
This accident has created an understanding of love and an understanding of a relationship with Jesus that I never knew before. God loved me so much that I can do the best I can to love him back, but it is the amount of love that I will never be able to match. I'm just a person, but I'm a person that God created the way that he did, and it is a pleasure to be able to tell such a powerful story about what happened to me and what he did in my life to take me right to the edge of death and grab me and bring me back to a completely normal, functioning person.